Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of House of League. Thanks for joining us in our sweltering house once again. It's myself, James Smales. I'm here with Matt Shaw, as always, our Rugby League editor, and Josh McAllister. We warm enough, boys?
Anyone who moans about my legs being out this week, I'm sorry. Get in this room and try and record. It's a furnace.
By anyone, do you mean the host? That's why I didn't wear shorts today.
There was a comment about, I think it was from an Australian last week, saying if Matt had his pasty white legs out in Australia, he'd get deported, I think it said. Well, I'm sorry, it's way too hot in here.
It's the hottest day of the year outside, and you stick all these studio lights on us, and it's slightly sweltering inside, but lots of hot debate will only get us going even more. I don't know, it's a rubbish segue, but
I liked it.
Yeah, well, thanks, Josh. That's why I have you here, just to boost the ego. Let's get going. There's lots to get through this week. What I want to get stuck into, first off, is the controversy around the Cas Tigers and Wigan Warriors game at the weekend on Saturday evening, and the fallout, if you will, and the RFL apology that's subsequently come following the incident that saw Harry Smith, I don't want to say pulling back on Josh Sim, he was climbing on him a little bit, if you will, that basically went to a captain's challenge call, which Wigan successfully won, and they said, yeah, nothing to say here, lads, just somebody pulling somebody back and stopping him getting to the ball, but we'll crack on, that's fine. Dan Maguire, incensed, I think is probably the best word, after the game, and you can clearly see why. And then we've subsequently had the apology. I've probably been talking for about 10 minutes. Come in, lads, help me out.
I agree with pullback.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he apologised, because it seems to me that not everyone entirely thinks it was blatant. I thought it was a penalty. What do you think?
I thought it was a penalty as well. Danny Maguire was fuming after, but looking at it was Wigan. The challenge was that the referee went just for a straight turnover, didn't he? Because Tyler Dupree, I think, was on the ball, and then Castleford tackled them. So that wasn't even in the conversation until we went to the captain's challenge. So Wigan it was almost a banana skin moment, and he had his arm around him, and I think there'd have been less complaints if the decision went the other way.
Yeah, the initial thing of him going to tackle him, I've no real drama with, but then it's the secondary movement, is it? Look, it's a pullback. It should be a penalty to Castleford. Was it the reason they lost the game? We won't know. We'll never know. I would, the defence for the try subsequently was appalling, and you've got to back things up like that. So, but it was a bad call. The bigger point for me, really, on this, Smales, is I'm just a bit sick of the video ref, to the point where I just think get rid of it.
Well,
I think everyone is.
We were both at Hull Kingston Rovers on Friday night,
painful.
and incensed ourselves, that's twice I've used this word, across the press bench, weren't we? The time it was taking to either award or disallow tries, that you could clearly see from the first viewing, that's not a try. Was it the Burgess one?
There was the Corey Hall one where he clearly bounces it.
Yes.
There was the Liam Hood one where he's held up.
Yeah.
The play, what people don't see watching on TV, the players are watching it. They see it and they just go to position. They know it's a try or not a try.
Yes.
Yet we still keep watching it. Why? We can all see it's not a try, or it is a try. Crack on. Joe Burgess, the one. His knee were on the floor.
His knee was on the floor and his hand was on the floor.
We saw it off. We saw it straight away. First viewing of it, no try. Everyone, all the players move. We all start typing, no try. And keep watching it. It's slowing the game down, and it doesn't help anyone. You've got young kids there who, if it's a Thursday night, say, they've got school.
Yeah.
People have work. They've got to get back, if you're in a away fan, particularly you're travelling, you've got to, you're getting home later. For the media, it's a nightmare for us with print deadlines.
Yeah.
Because we have print deadlines, and sometimes I'm having to file reports for the Mirror before the game's even finished.
Yeah.
Because there's all these delays. It's no fun. And more than any of that, it's taken away from the product. we got to a point where we were speeding the game up. You know, we quicker play the balls. 60 games were brought in to speed everything up and make things quicker and more entertaining, easier on the eye. All these captain's challenges and extensive video ref reviews are completely taken away from that. You know, we were at a point where props can essentially play with 50, 60 minutes because there's that many breaks they can get over it. It's just taken away from the attritional value of rugby league, which is one of the best parts of the sport. It's, for me at this point, I'm that sick of it. I won't be upset if it went.
I don't think there'll be a head coach now that hasn't mentioned the fact that games are taking 2 hours long. And I think on the other side of it is the technology just isn't good enough. It's not like the NRL. The picture isn't clear enough on some decisions. So that's why, you know, there are some points where you think, like, where you can see that. But sometimes the technology is just not good enough. The camera, it's just the definition's not that good enough. And that's why they're having to look over it again. If that's the case, then I would be a bit like Matt and just scrap it. Unless we can get to a point where we've got cameras as good as the NRL, and that's why they can do it so quickly, then just get rid of it.
Can we put a time limit on it?
Possibly. That would be the solution.
And can we get rid of this sending stuff up as a try or a no try? Which
I've said this for
ridiculous.
years. Get rid of that, and it's just, if it's inconclusive, you go with the attacking team. Every time you go with the attacking team, and then it's no inconsistency, you get rewarded for attacking.
Well, of course, in the NRL, they award it, don't they? And then they review it. So then at least you're lined up for your kick, the conversion's lined up, and then when it's awarded, play on, it's done.
Yeah, they use that free time of when the conversion's been taken, preparing for the conversion to actually review it, don't they?
Which moves it on quicker.
We've gone off topic a little bit because Matt got his little soapbox there on video refs. I want to take you back, Josh, to the RFL apology. And Matt said he was surprised that they apologised. Have they made a little bit of a rod for their own back by coming out and apologising now? And are we going to expect further apologies for other incidents? Because, you know, this wasn't the worst crime that we've seen, the worst refereeing mistake this season. So if they're apologising for this, are we going to now see a spate of apologies? And what does that say about the state of the game and the backing for the referees?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the first mistake we've seen this season, and you know, with due respect, and it won't be the last. We can't have an apology after every single one, can we? And I think coming out with that apology just opens it up to more criticism. Now we all know what social media is like and supporters, but it just opens it up to just far more criticism coming out and saying we got it wrong. I think that was probably the wrong call. But yeah, you're right. We can't have an apology every time a decision is wrong. You just can't have it, can you?
Let's just stick with that game a little bit. Now, we're going to talk about both teams when we do our prediction show later in the week, but let's just stick with Wigan just while we're here for a little bit. We saw them just get over the line against Huddersfield, then they went and lost to Wakefield, just got over the line this week. They're in a bit of a sticky patch, aren't they? I mean, you could play devil's advocate and say, well, they still won, and they still beat Huddersfield, and Wakefield are a good side, which they are. But there's still no denying they're in a bit of a sticky patch in terms of the form.
Yeah, there's something. I watched that game back, and for periods I thought they looked quite good, and then just something would happen, and they don't react to it well. You know, the intercept, and just, I don't know. They're without Bevan French. You know, makes a massive difference.
So while you mentioned that, 8 weeks.
Well, let's be right. He missed the Huddersfield game. Nearly lost. Played against Wakefield, but Matt Pete confirmed he'd done his calf in the game.
Yeah.
And then they're without him again. Are we overlooking the fact that they are without, in my opinion, the genuine superstar of the competition, and that's why the form's dipped a bit? Let's not forget Liam Marshall pulled out of the warm-up. Abbas Miski didn't play. So you're without your two wingers and your six. Yeah. That hurts anyone. You take Mikey Lewis, Tom Davis, Joe Burgess out of the OKR team. How do we think they get on? So is there a bit of mitigation there that we're overlooking, maybe?
And we were told before by our producer that if you compare the first 16 rounds to last year, we're going to have only lost one more this year than last year, and we all saw what they did last year. And they did go through a sticky patch last year, where they lost to Warrington, Hull and Leeds, and they came through it, and they won the grand final, didn't they? And obviously completed the treble. Every week we say they won't be panicking, and they won't be panicking just yet. I don't think it's time to panic just yet if the Warriors 4 points clear of Leeds, who might think that they have a chance at second spot now, can't think of when they play each other, but yeah, I don't think they'd be panicking too much yet. But Ben French usually, but there's injuries all around.
They're not going to be panicking because they're still finding a way to win while they're not playing well. But the longer they keep going not playing well, it might not be panic, but there'll be some concern growing.
My concern for Wigan would be how long can they get away with playing an average, which I think it's average, isn't it? How long can they get away with that? And then when they need to turn it on, can they do it? Is it easy just to be? They're not coasting because they're struggling in games, but maybe not playing at full throttle. Can you then, when you play a Hull KR or when you play a Leeds, can they flick the switch?
Which is,
I don't know if you can or not. I'm not a player. I've not been in that situation, but it feels to me that it would. You compare it to Hull KR, who are just on it every week. Can Hull KR, when Wigan play Hull KR, can they raise to that level, having not done it for a period of time?
I mean, we don't know. We're not players. I mean, we've got the body of athletes, but we haven't got that big game experience, clearly. Let's move on the topic. One thing that I want to touch on was this kind of growing feeling throughout the game, and I do get the feeling that it is something that's picking up a little bit of momentum, and that's that we're heading towards a 14-team Super League, but whereas a lot of people thought we were heading there for 2028, maybe 2027, there's a growing sense we might even be heading there in 2026, and that come the end of the season and the gradings and everything else, we find ourselves in a 14-team competition next season. I think you've got a little bit of a sense of that, Matt, with some of the conversations that you've had, that it's picking up a little bit of traction, isn't it?
It is. For many more reasons than people realise. One of the big ones is Salford, and we don't know what's going on there.
Yeah.
The general feeling is, will they survive still? We all hope so, but we don't know. Certainly if they didn't survive and you were bringing two teams up, the high probability is Toulouse would be one. Right. The issue with that...
And just to explain that, the high probability is because at the minute, they're 13th on the IMG gradings, and all the clubs have signed into this. You can't then start moving the goalposts and being like, whoa, we don't want two French teams in.
Yeah. But the clubs don't want two French teams in.
Well,
but you can't move the goalposts.
Yeah,
right. The reason they don't want them in is, for a lot of clubs, they have 13 home games, biggest revenue. With loop fixtures, there's a possibility 4 of your home games could be against Catalan and Toulouse.
Yeah.
Who we all know don't bring away fans. Your home crowds generally go down because it's not a rivalry. There's not an atmosphere.
The atmosphere's different.
So it can actually be financially, that could really hurt some teams.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you counteract that? Well, you counteract that by getting rid of loop fixtures. How do you get rid of loop fixtures? You have 14 teams. Okay. So that's one of the main reasons why it's being pushed forward now.
Yes.
Immediately.
It's basically the fear that Toulouse are going to get in.
Yes.
Is driving. We need more
where
teams.
if you have 14 and Toulouse go up, it's conventional home and away.
Yeah.
You've only got 2 games. Right. Okay. So we can get to that point. The finances, obviously, the issue financially is you've got an extra game to every week. That goes on Sky. That's 20 grand a game. That comes to about $500,000 over the course of a season. But the general feeling is financially, with the Toulouse aspect, it makes sense to go to 14 still. You can still make it work. Now, one of the big concerns financially is more long term. And I'm trying to wrap this as quick as I can to give people an insight, but not skip over things. If they go to 14, they will want 2 teams to take reduced central funding to come up, which I think there is an appetite for some clubs to do. The problem is we're at the end of a broadcast deal, at the end of they'll be renegotiating. What if it goes down? They're not going to take reduced funding forever. Then what happens to 14 teams?
Yeah.
Right, so that's a concern. Your other big issue is player pool. We know we're going up to 10 quarters, which instantly means you can have about another 30 overseas players over 14 teams. It's more like 42 players, isn't it? 42? but is there enough? You look at the Championship right now, and you pick any of the top teams, none of them are absolutely blitzing the competition. Bradford, who, with the Nigel Wood element, everyone thinks Bradford, they lost to Barrow this week. They've lost quite a few games. Toulouse lost to Widnes. It's ironic that this conversation sort of come up now. London, who were the big one, now they had a big win over Hunslet, but they're next to bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. How can they go from the Championship, be given a couple of months to try and put the Super League team together and compete? The players aren't out there. And the players they've got clearly aren't good enough because they're not good enough to dominate the Championship. It's not like Lee of the past or whoever.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a concern. Is it going to diminish your product? But the direction of travel is still 14. I think everyone can recognise that 14 works and is the best thing to do if you've got the money and you've got the player pool. The question is, have we got... But financially, they think it makes sense now.
Right, I've got a few things on the back of that. Obviously, my one question to you straight away is, why not just promote the greatest team in the world, Halifax? Surely they're still...
I agree.
Are they still top? Because
Halifax,
the last time we heard from you,
Halifax,
they were beating everybody and they were top of the table.
Halifax are currently playing at Odsall.
Yeah, and we've not heard from you since.
Yeah, let's move on.
Yeah, let's move on anyway, because I've a serious point to make now. Matt talks about reduced funding. 2 clubs would be happy to take that reduced funding in order to get themselves in the door, get a foot in the door of Super League. Let's say, for example, perhaps York, who are very ambitious. Maybe they do it. But here's where I'm at with it. What does that say about the competition from a fairness point of view? In terms of, we're not on an even playing field here. I don't know. What does it just say about the competition when you've got... Yeah, we've got 14 teams, but some of them, they're not getting a lot of money and they're just going to be the whipping boys, and some of them are getting paid miles more than them. It doesn't sit right for a start.
It can reduce the quality of the competition, can't it? Because if you've got 2 teams there predominantly made up of Championship players who were part-time just 12 months ago, chances are they're going to get beat every week. And the score can be whatever the Super League team wants. It could definitely reduce the quality. And on the player pool, is not only are we then fighting within ourselves with the player pool, but we've got to think about the 2 new teams in the NRL that are going to be sniffing around ours. We've already seen Morgan Knowles is heading over. George Williams, which we'll go into soon. We're already losing our star players. So then we're in a battle with ourselves and with Australia. So that player pool is a massive point as well.
Josh, let's be right. Realistically, at least one, you could argue 3 of the teams we've got in Super League right now aren't Super League standard. Look at the league table. Huddersfield have won 2 games all year. Salford's it's a bit of a unique case. Cass are getting better, but Cass have struggled.
The standard's still poor though.
At the bottom of the league, and you're going to add another 3 teams. Or another 2 teams.
Yes. Well,
just not convinced it
potentially we could be adding 3 teams depending on where we're at with Salford. Yes. And that's the big unknown in this situation is this 14 teams that include Salford in some way, or does it not include Salford at all? And we don't know about that because we don't know where we're at with the takeover. I mean, we're in the same position every week.
Can I ask a bigger question? Surely if you're going to handpick teams based on they'll put their hand up to take reduced funding, it's the end of gradings, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you're going against...
Well, it makes a mockery of it, doesn't it? Really.
And because, do you know who I could genuinely see putting their hand up to go into Super League if this happens on central funding? Oldham. And people got Oldham in Super League, but just stick with me. We know that they don't get a lot of central funding right now because they got promoted from League One as champions, right? So we know that they're not getting, because of the way that it's all tiered and structured, they don't get a lot of central funding. And we're talking it'll be a 5-figure fee, right? But they're spending big money on their squad. And we know they are because you only have to look at the players. Josh Drinkwater, Jordan Turner, they've just signed Zane Musgrove. They've got a lot of players that are being paid well. They'll be one of the biggest spending teams in the comp. Now, if you said tomorrow, right, you can have half the funding, half of a Super League funding, which is around $500,000, 550 grand-ish. Well, I imagine they just put that all into the squad because they'll make more money than that through sponsorship, broadcast, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
But then, you said, where do you go with gradings? At the minute, you've got Toulouse sitting in 13th on the IMG gradings.
Yeah.
London 14th, York 15th, Bradford 16th. They're the next 4 cabs off the rank, if you will,
Yeah.
based on the last set of grading. Grading does change, clubs move around, but it's because of the way it's structured, it's so hard to go from the low 20s or the mid 20s to jump all the way up into like
but you know
13th.
The interesting dynamic in all this is London, isn't it? But you know, we know that London have. We heard Gary Everington not too long ago. He said it to me in the London House. You know, we could be in Super League next year. I don't think they've got the funding. From what I'm hearing, they've no funding right now, so they won't come up. But that would be one of the big incentives, I think, to go to 14 to get London in, because we all know the London narrative that if it's done right, it could be good and big for the sport. I don't think London are ready to come in. So I think if you were doing it, you'd be probably looking at, and if Salford went down, which who knows? I'm not going to say one way or another. I just don't know. But you've probably got 4 clubs, I think, that do it: Toulouse, Bradford, York, and Oldham.
Yeah.
So you could be looking at 3 of those 4. And I don't know where Toulouse stand in terms of the funding, and you know, there's loads going on. I don't think 14's a given for next year. I think 14's a given moving forward the way we're going.
Yes.
But it's not a given for next year. But it seems to be going that way. And I think it'll be 3 of those 4. 2 of those 4 if Salford stay.
But Josh,
not convinced by the London Hounds, is it?
London Hounds.
Yeah, not convinced by London Hounds.
No, that's a shocking name. Josh, there's a lot of frustration around the sport. There always has been. The governance of it and everything associated with that. And you can see why when we're going into July, right, we're into the summer months, there's only a few months of the season left, and we don't have a clue what next year's competition looks like in terms of how many teams, who those teams are going to be. That's not how you grow a sport properly. That's not how you govern a sport. And it feels like we're just going from one decision to another, snap decisions, we'll do this, we'll do that. Where's the long-term structure and planning in all this? That's my frustration. And I would imagine that's a lot of the fans' frustration. So I don't actually know if there's a question in this. I'm just having a little bit of a moan here. But I guess what my question is how do you fix that in terms of, do we say, look, it's 14, but we do it from 2027? We've at least got 18 months or whatever to plan for this.
There is no sport like it, is there? But we brought in IMG for this long-term strategic partnership, so we didn't have to have these conversations. So there was long-term planning. So we weren't thinking, well, what's going to happen in 6 months? Are we going to be here? Are we going to be there? I'd like to...
But these decisions are not being made by IMG. They've been made by the clubs.
Look, the IMG are going to be gone. The whatever the severance is, it'll get sorted.
Which is the sport again. We'll bring something in. We'll give them a 12-year strategic partnership. It's been 2 years. Well, we don't like it now. Sorry, bye. And that's it. That's just the sport.
And this is what frustrates me about this strategic review we're doing. Everyone will get behind it. You can see it a mile off, and then after a couple of years, there'll be people who get disgruntled, and that group will try and then oust it and change it again, rinse and repeat over and over and over again. It don't matter who it is. The same, and the way that the structure of the sport is, you can throw your weight around, even if you're. I'm not going to name clubs because it's disrespectful, but you can be one of the smaller clubs and you can still have quite a big influence on it. It's just
the IMG thing's just been a waste of time and a job. I mean, for all the good it is, you might as well have just, I don't know, given away your sponsorship for free and stuck it on the side of a truck. Anyway, moving on. Big news came out today. Yes, the England squad, but I'm thinking, Steve McNamara's been sacked, people.
Unbelievable.
This came out of nowhere.
Exclusive confirmed from about 2 months ago.
It's just, what? I don't know what they're playing out.
There must have been some settlement and legals behind it.
Yes, but he has officially been sacked today by the Caroline Dragons. Joking aside, the big news, the England squad has been announced. I'm not going to go through the full squad. We haven't got long enough left in the show. 6 uncapped players, though. James Batchelor from Hull KR. Has been in the squad before, but is uncapped. James McDonnell and Morgan Gannon, likewise from Leeds. Harry Robertson, George Delaney at St Helens. Owen Trout was an interesting one as well, rewarded for his really good form for Lee so far this season. We just managed to get a quick look at it before we came in to record just early assessments. No Man of Steel leader in there.
That's the headline, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the headline.
There was almost not a shock about that, though, is there? Because Jake Connor's he's never been a part of Sean Wayne's plans.
No.
As good as he has been this year in Super League, he's never been a part of Sean Wayne's plans.
And if he wins the Man of Steel at the end of the season, I still don't expect to see him play against Australia.
Let's be right. Sean Wayne clearly doesn't fancy Jake Connor.
No.
Because on ability, Jake Connor gets in that squad. No one could argue that.
Yeah.
So he clearly doesn't fancy him. And you can, based on, his antics, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but I think he's cut that out this year. Absolutely. I think we've seen a much more mature Jake Connor this time round.
But Sean Wayne likes the players that he likes, and he puts a lot of trust and faith in them. Last season's, or the current reigning Man of Steel in Mikey Lewis, he's probably not going to start either against the Aussies. He might get on the bench, but he might even not get on the bench as the reigning Man of Steel. Well, he won't be by then. A new one will be crowned. But you see what I mean?
Jake Connor.
Yeah. You see what I mean? Because, he trusts, he wants to go with George Williams. He wants to play Harry in there and not Mikey. So
look, Sean Wayne's more intact, and let's be right, he's done a good job. How many games has he lost? 1, which was a semi-final. Well, they lost to the Exiles or the All Stars or whatever they were called at the time in his very first game, didn't they? But look, I don't. You've got to trust Sean Wayne to make the calls. We would all. The beauty of an international squad is we'd all have different opinions, wouldn't we? We all would. Yeah. You've got to trust Sean Wayne. I do think it's a shame for Jake Connor though, because he got 3 assists again at the weekend. He's played so well this year.
You could at least see him in the extended squad, even if he doesn't make the final 24-man squad or whether it be for the Ashes. You could see him in the extended squad to then be in the conversation.
Is he worth having him there for the utility value, or given the fact where he's playing all this season at Leeds and not being shunted around as a bit of a fixer-upper of we need a full-back, we need a centre, we need whatever.
Yeah.
He hasn't been that person for Leeds, but is it worth having him in there because you could throw him in any of them positions if you wanted to?
You'd have to look at it deeper, but I suppose in the halves, you would still say that George Williams, Harry Smith, Mikey Lewis are ahead of him.
Yeah.
So you're bringing him in as a 4th choice. At full-back, you've got Wellesby. Admittedly, there's not many.
But full-back's the big question. Wellesby, you're hoping is fighting fitness he'll be back hopefully by the end of the season, but fighting a bit of fitness there. Full-back's the biggest question. AJ Brimson said he wants to play for England, but you could be an argument for Jake Connor for fullback.
There's no obvious next in line, is there, at fullback? Unless
because if you've got Wellesby, let's just hopefully not, but carrying a little knock, and you're playing him in that first test, and you're like, I'm really hoping he's going to get through the 80 minutes here, or depending on who's doing the video ref, it could be 280 minutes. Hoping he's going to get through the game here, but you're unsure. If you've got a Jake Connor on the bench that can also be that X factor, if you will, that can go on and do something else, even if Wellesby's making it through the full 80. I don't know.
I would have thought
it out there.
I would have thought that Sean Wayne might have been tempted to get him in the performance squad, get a feel for him as a character, and see if he could change his mind. But anyway, yeah.
Just quickly, are we frustrated that they're not having a proper training session and that this squad are not even going to get on the field together at all until the week before the Ashes?
Before a historic Ashes, they should be on the training field. There'll be disappointment everywhere.
Do we know what they're doing tomorrow? They off Laser Quest? They off
they're speaking
Domino's
to press.
Pizza?
Yeah, I hope so, because we're there, so that'd be good. Other pizzas are available. But yeah, hopefully that's the case.
Fair enough.
I like Mighty Meteor.
Just rattling through a couple of other things. George Williams' his future. While we're talking about halfbacks, he's come out and said, not a lot actually. It was your story, Matt, that sparked the debate in the first place, saying it looks like he's going to head back to the NRL 2027, but possibly at the end of this season, if deals can be arranged and Warrington can get somebody in. Do you expect him to go at the end of the season, or do you think it will be 2027?
I think George would prefer to go at the end of the season, but I don't think he'd force them to. I don't think the fee's an issue. I think it's purely can Warrington find a suitable replacement, because they don't want to jeopardise next season.
And that's not going to be easy.
So I'm not giving you an answer there. But
If you don't know the answer,
no, I don't think there's a definitive answer at the minute.
Okay.
I think gut would say probably goes at the end of the season because I think Warrington will find someone, but right here, right now, couldn't guarantee it.
And the concern, and you did a piece for us on All Out Rugby League, Josh, on this is with Mark Steed, his age. I mean, we're not writing him off just yet, but that's potentially the two halfbacks in the next couple of years that they're going to need to replace. They've got some young kids coming through, but then that's a gamble as well. There's some real big squad decisions that need to be made at that club in the next months to a year, isn't there?
There's a big squad rebuild, I think, on the horizon there. I think there's 8 players in the current squad, excluding Williams, that are 30 and over. And I think that goes up. I think James Harrison and Matt Duffy turn 30 next year. I think Stephen Rashford's included in that. Obviously, he's off contract in the year. I think there's a big squad rebuild on the horizon. And the even bigger question is, who oversees that? Because we see, the same question with Brad Arthur, but we see Sam Burgess. He obviously wants a crack at the NRL. They need a long-term sort of coach who will oversee this squad rebuild, which I think is going to be needed in the coming years.
And what I would say is you've been critical of Warrington's recruitment of the last year or so, Matt. When we're talking about a massive squad rebuild, they need to get that right, or they're going to find, if they have a situation where, and I'll compare it to Hull FC and some of their recruitment over the last couple of years, for example, they go about that way, they're in a really tough spot.
Don't disagree. Nothing to add.
I will finally add, though, that there is a buzz around Warrington's academy system. I think it's Ryan O'Brien that heads that up, who used to be at Widnes. There is a lot of buzz that there's going to be lots of bright futures there. Obviously, it's a longer-term project. We're talking 4, 5, 6 years, and obviously it's a success. Sports is a success business, so fans don't want to wait that time. But there is a lot of buzz around the academy and the youth pathway in Warrington.
Right. Well, I think that about rounds us up for today. We'll be back later in the week with our prediction show. But for now, thanks for popping by to our hot house here. On behalf of myself and Josh, thanks for being with us. We'll see you soon.
And above all else, enjoy rugby league. Take care.